You can listen to the Millwall Fan Show on Love Sport Radio with host Matt Beadle and the members of the Millwall No One Likes Us talking team every Friday night between 9 and 10 p.m.
No one likes us! No one likes us!
Indeed, we are Millwall from the Den. I'm Matt Beadle and this is Love Sport Radio. It's time. It is time for the Millwall Fan Show on Love Sport with the guys from Nolu talking. As always, I'm joined by Stan Godwin, by Dave Hart, and for the first time in my tenure on this show, Mr. Eamonn Barkley.
Well, there you go. Isn't that a wonderful thing?
There we go. Isn't that a wonderful thing? And before we go any further, we've got to discuss the attire right now because Stan is sat here in a resplendent blue and white striped top, vertical stripes, I hasten to add.
That's
Stan,
right, yeah.
talk me through it.
Well, this was the shirt and for 3 seasons in the 60s, from 64 till 67. And in that time, we secured 2 promotions. We went from the 4th to the 2nd in successive seasons. And in the process, we ended up going 59 home games in the league, undefeated. And when we broke the record of, I think it was Huddersfield.
Was it really?
And it was a 30-year-old record at that point, and they'd done 55. And then on the 26th of November 1966, we played Carlisle and beat them, and then we broke that record. And then we went on to, and the last game before we lost was against Norwich. I forget now whether we won it or draw. I forget. But anyway, and then at the end of that, this was the shirt they was wearing. And at the end of the season, this one went, and they got the one that was just all blue.
Yeah, we mustn't tell Pat Maslin you got that on. She'd be very...
Did she not like it?
But she said, well, any person over a certain age, and I won't mention the age, should not be wearing football shirts.
Yeah, she's got... Which, at times, Pat can be flaky, shall we say.
Oh, I think she can be very pointed, actually.
I'll tell you what,
flaky.
I'm not going to say a single bad word about Pat because she often obviously comes in and sits where you're sitting, Eamon, and she's within striking distance of me, and she's a strong lady.
Oh, this is very true, yeah.
We are not going to say a bad word about Pat, and we love you, Pat. You are wonderful on this show. And this is, of course, you mentioned the home form there, the 59 games undefeated, Stan. We're going to get onto the QPR clash and, of course, a first home defeat this season in the Championship for the Lions. We're going to be speaking later on in the show to Phil Coleman, of course, former Millwall defender. We've got the fan in the dugout. Bethany Warren is going to be on the line there. We're going to be looking at a hero or legend for Millwall, Tim Cahill, and looking ahead, of course, to the clash with Huddersfield at the weekend. But first up, gents, a 3rd league defeat of the season and a first back-to-back this season for Millwall against QPR last weekend. What happened?
Well, for me, I think it was more about what didn't happen, really. I suppose you could say the result was a bit touch and go. It could have easily been a draw, except for our man Bielkowski, who's been a bit of a star, made a major boob, missed kick, in come Narky Wells, and put it straight back in the back of the net after we'd only equalised a few minutes beforehand.
Tough, wasn't it, Bielkowski? Because he's, like you said, he's come in. He came straight in that first game when Frankie Fielding was injured, and probably kept the score down. Dave, at Blackburn, you'd say the previous week, but it was a boob. We're going to see more of this now because of the playing out from the back. Not so much a playing out of the back error, but he came out in confidence to get to the ball before Naki Wells. It didn't work out. It was an open goal, but are we forgiving and forgetting very quickly on this one?
Well, it's something that Bielkowski does. We've spoken to Ipswich fans when he first came to us. He said he can have 3 or 4 really fantastic games, make a lot of good saves, but then he'll drop a clanger. And unfortunately, in our case, that clanger cost us the game. And, so it's something he does and has been doing.
For a while.
Yeah, I mean, the irony of it all is that when that ball was played in, he tried to control it. If he'd have just lumped it, and I complain about people lumping it, but if he'd have just lumped it, then it just wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been a goal. But he whether it was a rush of blood to the head, I don't know. But he tried, and then it all went wrong. But in saying that, although we lost the game, right? I have to say, in the first half, we'd had these changes in the first half of the game. They hardly had a shot, and there was one occasion in the first half when they nearly scored, and it was the only time, and that was by somebody shot it. I think it hit
Hutchinson,
and then it sort of come out, and whatever. But other than that, in the first half, and I thought myself at the time, if we carry on like this in the second half, right,
But the other side of that first half is that they were calmly pushing the ball back and forward across the backs. Too many sides are doing that to us, and I think we get a bit flustered. I feel that we're being weighed up in the first half through that process, and then the second half they come out and want to have a go, whoever we're playing.
But the trouble is, we're just too predictable. I mean, if you look at the stats for Millwall this season. I made them out of them. I mean, we've now, for all this new attack that we had. I mean, at the end of last season, everybody knew there was aggravation, and Neil Harris comes out and tells us all players have got to go. Steve Morrison at one point was even saying, "Oh, well, if I name names, careers will be ruined and all that." I don't doubt that for a minute. And they then bring in new players, and he does all that. And nobody at the time, when you look at any message board, when they were signing these players, nobody said, "Oh, I don't rate him, and I don't think much to him." And, everyone rated, everyone was geared up for it, right? First game of the season, and okay, fine. But look at it, we've scored 1 goal from open play this season. 1 goal from open play.
Well, Stan, I mean, you're saying you've got stats. That's 12 goals in 15 championship games now. That dates back to the 2-0 win over West Brom in April. Since then, you've not scored more than 1 goal in a league game.
15 league games. That's what I'm saying.
Which isn't good enough. And you mentioned the strikers. I mean, Matt Smith, in my opinion, he's kind of exceeded expectation for me. I think he's done better than I expected him to do. John Daddy Budvarsson, you look at the 2 strikers that have come in, and I don't know, from a supporter's perspective, it doesn't fill me with excitement. You know what you're going to get, but you don't look. I tell you what, they are going to change things this season. You kind of know what you're going to get, and it's to a certain level of performance, but it's not going to go that level higher.
Well, come on, Stan, give us a go.
Go on, Liam. Go on.
Right, I think you're right. There is a bit of that, but there's also a bit of you've got 2 strikers that are new, basically Budvarsson and Smith. But you've also got a third striker in Bradshaw that's almost new because he didn't play for very much last season. You've then got another 4-5 players who come into that squad who have not played together. So you've got a side that's in development, and I accept that totally. But chopping and changing so quickly and how we go about that is something that I would question. But let's not forget, we're 3 points off middle table, where I thought we might finish this season, and it's only September. So I don't think we need to be too harsh. I think there is work still in progress.
I think with Harris, he set up to counteract QPR. When you're at home, you make the other team counteract you. Go for the win. And I don't think we actually did that. Yeah. When Bradshaw came on, that's where our equaliser came from. Almost his first touch.
But you see, that's right. But you see, I feel sorry for Matt Smith. I honestly do, because, Matt Smith is the old-fashioned type centre forward, right? And what he ain't got is pace. Now that's not his fault, and I'm not saying that's no reason why. But if I'm sitting here watching him, I don't want Matt Smith in the middle of their half. I want him in the goal. I want him in their area, and I want to see either what's his name, Ferguson or whoever, wingers coming down and putting crosses in and giving him service. What was happening on Saturday? He's being held up in the middle of their half. You've got the big centre half behind him. He's being screened in front, and whether it was Bradshaw or the other guy,
Budvarsson.
They're feeding on scraps. And everyone is saying, right, why is Harris persist with this long ball down the middle? I mean, it's like poor old Matt Smith. He's like a battering ram, and he's wasted there. And that's the problem.
I do think it became apparent in the second half last week that Shane Ferguson, who'd been brought back into the side, it became apparent that it was very much right, Shane. You get it on your left, you whip it. I know it sounds really basic, and I know that Neil Harris has got more to him than that, but it became apparent that it was very much a case of whip them in, and Matt will get on the end of it. And listen, that's not to say that couldn't be a winning formula. We haven't really seen it with Conor Mahoney, who we thought might be more effective on the left this season. Shane Ferguson's come back in and has just done what you'd expect him to do. Get a yard, whip it in, and Matt Smith will cause problems.
Yeah, when you consider Conor Mahoney was probably the best crosser in the Championship whilst on loan at Birmingham last year, he certainly hasn't lived up to that reputation. I think a few other balls started to fly in and get around through our man Jason Malumbi. But
I'd like to talk about him, Eamonn, because a lot of hype about him coming in from Bournemouth on loan. Obviously has looked very good for Bournemouth, looked very good for Ireland at youth level. He made his debut against Blackburn the previous week, but his home debut this week. How did he look?
Well, he looked okay to me, but it was in a disjointed team as well. I think he's got a lot to offer, and I've seen him a few times play for the Republic at under 21, and his passing ability for them is out of this world. And, of course, he's the captain for the under-21s as well. I think he needs to play him more regularly in the Millwall side, and I think we'll see a player that's going to be very special down the line. I think Stan was talking along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I watched him, and it's the first time I've actually seen him other than in sort of highlights. But I was very impressed with him. I mean, his range of passing was superb.
It's terrific.
He's a good player, but for all that, he's doing all this work and he's laying it, and then it all comes to a grinding halt in the centre of the second in their half because somebody, Smith knock it to him, and
he put fantastic balls across into the goal area, but there's no one there.
Yeah, I tell you, the other bloke who impressed me, the guy that was playing in because Marlon Romeo failed.
McCarthy.
I thought he done well. I thought they all played well, but. Yeah. They weren't a bad performance on the pitch.
No, a tale of two Jasons was quite a positive element of that game.
Yeah, I do think once Malumbi gets that full match fitness up, I think we'll definitely see the best from him. Just to finish on this section, I thought Neil Harris's quotes after the game were quite interesting / funny as well. The fact that he said, our goals change games. He said, football, that's why we love it. Well, we do, but not when we lose, Neil. And the fact that he said it's for frustration, I feel for Bart, he's a good lad, a good pro, a good goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Football, isn't it? Well, it is, Neil, but not. We'd rather not lose and just come out and say, well, that's football.
No, I feel for Bart as well, but I wouldn't say, no, that's just football. But I did feel for Bart. There's things there that aren't joining up. I've said already, there's a hell of a lot of players that have not played together as a team, and I think if that formula can come together with those players, we'll have a very good side to watch.
Indeed. Well, spare a thought for Stoke City while we're at it, because they are now 2-1 down at home to Nottingham Forest. Sammy Abiobi putting Forest 2-1 up. Nathan Jones, will he have a job after this game if Stoke do lose at home? Next up on the Millwall Fan Show, we're going to be speaking to former defender Phil Coleman.
Love Sport.
This is Love Sport, and me, Matt Beadle, with you through until 11 p.m. this evening. Right now, it's the Millwall Fan Show with the guys from Nolu talking. Stan, Dave and Eamonn. Of course, remember, you can get in touch with us. Very easy to do so. 0208 7020 558. You can WhatsApp us on that number as well, or tweet us at Love Sport Radio. You may even want to pick up Stan on his choice of attire this evening.
Absolutely.
Right, a quick promo to read out on Millwall fan and former firefighter Ty Hemblade. He lives in Chatham, Kent, and stopped cancer treatment 2 months ago after doctors told him there was nothing more they could do, sadly, for his illness. Ty told Southwark News at the time, "I've got renal cancer and secondary lung cancer, and there's nodules in my liver as well. There's no operation they can do now. It's in the system. That's it. It's all about quality of life, and that's what it is about." Sadly, the crash of travel company Thomas Cook put paid to a farewell family holiday for Ty, his wife Sam and the family, as doctors can't tell Ty how long he has left. So now, brilliantly, friends from the Den have rallied around him to fund another final holiday. Ty paid tribute to Millwall fans for their donations, many of whom, of course, he says, are strangers. "I'm totally amazed," he said. "Everyone knows that Millwall sticks with Millwall. There's a whole lot of things that fans do that doesn't get the attention it deserves. We've, of course, discussed this many times on the show. Everyone should know what Millwall does for others," he added. "The target of £3,000 has now been surpassed. The media interest has caused airlines, holiday companies to get involved. This has resulted in British Airways giving 10 flights to Greece for a week and a number of accommodation offers being given for free." This is fantastic news, fellas. Something to come out of what is a pretty terrible situation.
Yeah, it's a bad situation in real terms. Ty seems very brave in the situation that faces him, and it's good to see that he and the family will now get away as a group and enjoy some good time together. How long he's got, he doesn't know, but the guys at Millwall and his friend, I think it's Barry George, was the one who promoted it, have done a lot to make it happen. In fact, I think the money's heading towards £4,000. So I hope they enjoy themselves, and that week that they do get together is memorable for all the right reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Here. And hopefully we can hear all about it on the show. And another great thing to talk about on the Millwall Fan Show, which I've mentioned many times before, we don't really get on other fan shows, gents. So, massive props to you guys for that. A quick score update in the Championship. Lewis Grabban has grabbed a third. There we go. Lewis Grabban grabbing a third. I'm sure that headline's been done many, many times before for Nottingham Forest. They are now 3-1 up at Stoke. Not looking good for the Potters. But moving on, of course, now to Phil Coleman. He was a youth player at Millwall who held last week's Millwall legend Barry Kitchener in high esteem, of course. Phil signed professional terms for the club in 1978 and stayed until 81. In 1986, he returned for a second spell, and all in all, Phil played for 8 other sides until he ended his footballing career in 1995. Today, he's a school teacher and a Liberal Democrat councillor for Mile End on Colchester Borough Council. He still follows Millwall to this day, and he is on the line now. Phil, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Good evening, everyone. Great to be back on.
All right, Phil.
Hey, Phil.
Lovely to have you on. Of course, 40 years ago last May, you made your Millwall debut in a London derby. Remember that one well, given who the opposition was?
Oh, it was like the best, most memorable. It was 8 days, but so obviously I can remember like it was yesterday. The 14th, well, it's actually the 13th when George Petty came up to me and said, "You're playing tomorrow." Talk about excitement. No nerves at all, and it was West Ham United, and there's not many people who have debuted against West Ham United, and what's more, we absolutely beat them 2-1. And I can remember walking down the tunnel, I'm looking around the changing rooms, and it was quite comforting really, because I've got big kits next to me, Dave Donaldson on my right, Phil Walker, John Seasman, Brian Chambers, Nicky Chatterton, and there was I was protected in some ways, but memorable. Beaten 2-1. I think Nicky Chatterton and Dave Memrich scored. Crowd, I don't know, it was a full house, 12,000, 15,000 at the Den, something like that. I can remember flags being burnt behind the Alderton Road end, but I was too concentrated on marking Pop Robson, to be honest with you.
Do you know what, Phil? Do you know what I love about that is that often when we get footballers on the station and they talk about their career, so often so many footballers don't really remember, or sometimes they don't even like to talk about it. It's kind of one of those things that's in the past, but the details of things they actually struggle with. But I love the fact that that was your debut at such a crucial moment for you, and you remember all the fine details, even to the point of flags being burnt behind stadiums.
It was West Ham, though.
Yeah. I mean, it was. George Petty made my job easy, and I'm a little bit peed off to this day because he said to me, "Make it easy. Kitch will win the big uns with David Cross, and all you've got to do is stick to Pop Robson like glue." Yeah, I did, and he still scored. He got there one, but I got 3 points and 30 quid, and he got 1 goal. So I've got a debut to remember, and as I say, not many make your debut against West Ham and beat them. So that might be a bit of history, but I'll take that any day of the week. But it was a fantastic 8 days because the guys that were playing for West Ham, off the top of my head, I was marking Pop Robson and Kitch was marking David Cross, but I remember a tackle, I put Trevor Brooklyn over the wall in front of the seats and give him a little nudge and he went flying. But in that team was Billy Bonds, Frank Lampard, the goalkeeper was Phil Parkes. I mean, I think Alvin Martin played, Tommy Taylor, Devonshire. That was hell of a West Ham side, and to beat them 2-1. But it was just a game to me. You just train, you play. I couldn't wait for the next game. But when 20, 30 years later, you think, wow, I've made my debut and we beat West Ham. And there's a bit more credibility with it these days because of the aggro between the two clubs, so I'm quite happy with that.
It weren't like that then, was it, Phil?
Not really.
No,
not really.
No.
It seemed to go downhill after that.
Yeah, mind you though, Phil, if you were marking old Pop Robson, I mean, you must. I said he was a fair old player, wasn't he? I mean, how he never played for England on a full-time basis, I'll never ever know. But
no
he was a good player.
he sent me to sleep. He was that bad. He literally walked around. If Phil Parks kicked a long one and Cross was going up with big kitch, he made a little dart for 5 metres. I marked him, and if he didn't get it, he just gave up.
Yeah.
But I can remember the goal like yesterday. It came in from the halfway line on the terrace side into the area. He controlled it with his right foot. It bobbled over. I went to tackle him, and before I could get anywhere near him, he shot straight through my legs into the bottom corner from about the penalty spot. And it was just like, he had one chance. It was a miscontrol, and he still put it in the net. He was like an absolute rapier in the box.
Oh,
but the rest of the game, I don't think I've ever had an easier game. He was just in the box. Talk about Fox in the box. He was one of them, definitely.
Oh, yeah. And of course, also playing at the old Den, and I mean, it was always an intimidating ground, absolutely no doubt about that. But I should imagine it put the fear of God into them, I reckon. I
think teams were actually beat walking down the tunnel. I mean, if we weren't spitting and punching them in the tunnel, it was an intimidating place, and the fences went up, and I think it made it even worse because, you know, and that was for home. I've seen some home players. Will, I'm not going to name names, but there was a few home players prefer to play away.
Come on, Phil. Name names.
Yeah, well, I quite enjoyed it because I stood on the terrace as a 13-year-old supporting. I was Coldblow Lane from a young age, and so to be running out on the green bays was something special. And the old Den, I mean, there was no toilets, the changing rooms, there's one giant bath, but there was a testosterone in the changing rooms, and there was a smell, the liniment, but when you went out on that pitch, there was. You guys have been there, and you understand what I'm saying about. There was an aura.
Oh, yeah.
There was an aura.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I mean,
and particularly.
Eamonn Dunphy in his book, innit? It's only a game when he describes the old Den, and he you know, you read it. I don't know if you've read it, Matt. You need to get it. I mean, he got it to a T. I mean, it was. Yeah. I mean, I remember we played Spurs in the FA Cup in '60. They went on to win the cup. Greaves, Gilsey, look, 40-odd thousand in that ground, and you did, and we had them on the rack.
Yep.
I mean, that's true.
It's true.
I can remember wingers going and playing 20 yards in from the touchline.
Yeah.
So, in effect, I played in next to the big man. You know, if I played right back, particularly 86, 87, there were some players there that went and played so close that there was no width on that side. They stayed away from that halfway line, certainly. You know, although my fan club was over there as well, in inverted commas.
There you go.
It's funny, isn't it, Phil? Because when we think about that, I mean, ultimately, yes, it's intimidating, but nothing's going to happen maybe they thought it was, but once you're inside those white lines, you'd like to think that you are protected to an extent, but such was the fear. Do you think now that actually it's almost become a bit too easy for opposing teams going to these newfangled stadiums where the facilities are great, where the pitches are great, and the fans perhaps are so far away from the pitch that it's not as intimidating as it could be? Absolutely.
I mean, if you took a throw on at the Den, you literally had about a 2-step run up from the fencing onto the white line. It wasn't far away. There was that little bit of red grass, and there was a little blue wall, and then the fencing went up. And I think the noise of the fans was right on you, and you either got it and loved it, and I did, or you hated it and you shied away from it and played further in. And there's also, there was a notoriety about Millwall.
Yeah.
You go into Millwall, and the stories are passed down. And even to this day, I could probably find out what's going on in Carlisle by making 1 or 2 phone calls to a few ex-players. And the football world was a really small world. It's even worse now with social media. But, you know, people heard of... I'll give you one story, because in that period when I made my debut in that May 79, we won the FA Youth Cup. Yeah. And in the quarter-final, we played Forest. And about 2,500 fans turned up to watch us draw 3-3. Only 1-0 down, 3-1 up, and we threw it away. And we beat them in the away leg. But in that home game, the right back... he must have made a few tackles on Kevin O'Callaghan because some fans chased him down the tunnel. This is an under-18s game.
My word.
He had a bag in the goal where he had his goalkeeping gloves and his cap and everything else as you do. But he'd taken his watch and his wallet and put them in there, and the fans had nicked that out of the goal. And then when they went back to the coach had been smashed up and the driver had been hit over the head with a lump of wood. Now, I will say that all that is to be confirmed, but I'll take it as gospel because the people that did it told me. So that's an under-18s quarter-final of the FA Youth Cup. The word got out really quickly. You know, we played them away in the replay, and Brian Clough comes in and says to his teammates, a bunch of wide boys come up from London. We beat them 1-0, and at the end of the game, you've just been beaten by the best youth team I've ever seen. So the word got out, the reputation of the club. 1 minute with wide boys, and then, hang on, this is real. They actually smashed the coach up. The under-18s coach was smashed up. So the word got out very quickly, and I think to a degree it's still going on. You get a packed den. I mean, I was there for QPR on Saturday. It was quiet. I've never known that to be quite so quiet, but you get the den against Leeds United, I'll be there because I know darn well it's going to be one hell of a game and the atmosphere. And if you are not the right material, you're going to wilt even at the new den. The old den was even worse. So the notoriety and that, it was abusive. I mean, I'm a home player and I've had coins thrown at me and I thought I was having a good game. So, it worked both ways.
You thought you was getting a tip there, didn't you, Phil, when the coins come?
Oh, I did. I was collecting the coins up at the end of the game because the bonuses weren't much.
Yeah, staggering to think that all did go on. Perhaps you weren't as safe as I was suspecting that you might have been. Phil, it's been great having you on, buddy. Just quickly before you go, your thoughts on Millwall so far this season. Obviously, they've got Huddersfield next. That undefeated home record went against QPR last week. But how do you see the season going for Neil and the boys?
I'm always positive. And I've seen a lot of negativity. I've read a few comments, but I'm looking at a new team, a new squad. I think there's 9 new players. There's 3 goalkeepers coming with experience. There's 3 good centre backs, and I just feel Neil is searching for partnerships. Which player work best in midfield? Which pair work best up front? Is there a good formation? I've seen him play 3 different formations so far in the first 8 games. What's the best way to play? We've got some good attacking threats. I like Bradshaw when he came on Saturday. Jed Wallace is going to be a threat. I think we are a good match defensively for anybody in the league. But, God, it's a tough league. There's some big budgets and quality players in there, and I don't think some fans give the Championship its due. It is one of the best leagues. There are no easy games, as they say. And I'll also say this. You make a mistake, you're punished. Some of these strikers don't miss, and if you can defend for 90 minutes and you one blemish and it goes straight in the back of the net, you lose 1-0. And you come away thinking, well, we actually played quite well. We defensively done really well. But it's the Championship. It's one down from the Premier League. And I'm not sure what the boys are earning at the Den these days, but I do know there's some Championship players on 40,000 a week, and there's Huddersfield are probably getting £40 million parachute payments. You're not doing them much good at the moment, but there's no easy games in the Championship, and we're a match for anyone on our day. It's just we've got to have a day every single game to match them. So I'm positive. I think there's a good squad there. There's a strong squad there. It's interesting as well because there are some really good young players. Neil's brought in some young players, and they're going to take time to and get accustomed to a new style and new club. It takes time to settle in. I mean, I got transferred, and it took me about a year and a half to settle into another club. So, if you're coming down to a hostile den, but I think Neil's got the players there. It's just I firmly believe he's searching for partnerships and the best formation out of what he's got new, and I'm backing it to come good. But I will say it is a tough league with some quality in there.
Yep, can't argue with you there, Phil. A very, very tough league. Phil Coleman, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks very much,
Phil.
Cheers, Phil.
That was Phil Coleman, former Millwall defender, with a tale or two to tell, hasn't he? Could speak to him for the whole show, I reckon.
I reckon we could have a whole day with Phil and a whole afternoon after that.
Yeah,
and then the night as well.
And a tough morning the next day, that's for sure. Yeah. This is the Millwall Fan Show on Love Sport. Plenty more coming up.
This is Love Sport.
This is the Millwall Fan Show on Love Sport. I'm Matt Beadle, and I'm joined by the guys from the No Loo Talking podcast, Stan, Dave and Eamonn. Thoroughly enjoying tonight's show. We're with you for another 25 minutes or so. And of course, Millwall face Huddersfield this weekend. Huddersfield, a team that are yet to register a win in the Championship, rock bottom of the table. But, gents, they have won their past 5 league matches against Millwall since losing 4-0 in October 2012. And hey, everybody has to start somewhere in the Championship. We're hoping it may not be this weekend, but one man who's hoping it will be is Matt Shaw from the Take That Chance Huddersfield podcast, and he's on the line now. Matt, how you doing?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you guys?
Yeah, good, thanks, boss. Good. Thanks for coming on. You may have heard me there say that Huddersfield are without a win, which, of course, you are aware of already this season, but
all too well, yeah.
Are things looking up under the Cowleys?
Yes, I think so. Very much so. They've come in and they've put a number of processes in place. Every time Danny Cowley speaks, I think all of us are quite impressed with what's happening. And the first half last week against West Brom, who are obviously a very decent side at this level, was has left us wanting a little bit more. The first half was good. We went in 2-1 up. We played sort of a more pragmatic approach, which suited some of the players that we have. And the first half has given us quite a lot of heart to take into the coming games. We've got a good run of 5-6 games now against teams sort of in and around where we are. And we're a bit more hopeful now as what we were a couple of weeks ago, that we could maybe sneak a win or two and hopefully start to climb a little bit.
Have you at all been surprised, Matt, by the way this season's gone thus far? Of course, you came down from the Premier League last season. It didn't quite work out with Mr. Seaver. You have changed your manager again. Of course, Wagner was there before. Are you surprised that it's perhaps not started as well after 8 games?
Yes, I think so. I fancied it to sort of be around sort of 12 to 15 this season anyway, and I did think it would take a little bit of an adjustment coming back. I felt there was quite a lot of players that weren't ready really for the sort of Saturday, Tuesday intensity that the Championship brings. And I don't think anybody really saw sort of how browbeaten and how confidence was completely through the floor with a lot of the players. And it's quite obvious looking at some of them, and some of them are still good players, but it's quite obvious that some of them are completely shot of confidence, and others, one or two, perhaps don't want to be there, maybe had one or two moves lined up over the summer that's not quite materialised. So I think there's a couple feeling sorry for themselves for a number of different reasons. So I think that is a little bit surprising from where we were. Pre-season seemed to go quite well. We were unbeaten in pre-season, ironically. And I didn't really see it coming, but I did see a slow start, but I didn't realise how slow it would be.
Yeah, slow starts can be difficult. I think we had a bit of a reverse of that. We had quite a good start, and now we're slowing up. But is there anyone that you fear or you're worried about in the Millwall side?
I think, to be honest, Millwall, I think it's the more sort of system that Millwall, or the sort of how they present themselves, if you like. When I think of Millwall, I think of tough, resilient teams who are able to put balls into the box. So I think Matt Smith particularly has done us a few times in the past when he played for QPR and Leeds, amongst others. And I think with the way that a couple of the players are feeling a little bit sorry for themselves, I think somebody physical like him could ruffle quite a few feathers in our backline. So I think for us, the key really is to stop the supply coming in from out wide for somebody like him, and try and keep him as high up the pitch as possible and away from the penalty box. So I think it's more the style that Millwall present rather than the individual. So I think Millwall are sort of a sum of the parts. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they feel very much to me like a sum of the parts more than a number of star players. And I think that teams like that can be quite dangerous when they have a certain style that they are quite well drilled with.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you say. In relationship to Matt Smith, I mean, I can understand your reluctance to see him in your area. I mean, all I'm hoping for is tomorrow that your defenders don't do to him what QPR done to us last week, where they made sure he didn't make too much progress to their penalty area. You know, they kept him well occupied outside, and that, to be honest with you, is a problem for us because, you know, people like Matt Smith need to be in the area. I don't want to, you know, and that was a problem. But one of the, I mean, your two managers. I say two managers because you've got the two brothers there, ain't you? I mean, they're at the stuff. I don't know who wear this, but they're at the Stoke game tonight. And but when your manager got the sack, the German guy, were they the favourites, do you reckon, or was there other people that, you know, your fans were looking to become his manager, or was they a bit of a surprise?
No, I think quite a few people had kind of looked at the Cowleys and kind of liked them. Lincoln's not a million miles away from us. It's not in Yorkshire, it's not particularly close, but I think they'd caught the eye of a lot of people with a bit of an unfashionable club, I would say, in Lincoln, and the rise that they've had at sort of Concord, Braintree, and Lincoln had sort of captured the imaginations of quite a lot of people. It's quite ironic, really, because one of the sticks that people beat Jan Sievert was they used to call him a German PE teacher, and quite ironically, they've gone and got two PE teachers to take back over. So But yeah, Cowleys were very much up in the thoughts of a lot of Huddersfield fans. I think we're quite realistic, a lot of us up here, so none of us were kind of clamouring for anything too spectacular. We just really wanted somebody to come in and kind of steady the ship and just have an outside view. So Mark Hudson's very well thought of by a lot of Huddersfield fans. He stepped in when Jan Ziva was relieved of duty, shall we say, and I think he would have been a popular choice had things not been so bad. But I think with the way things have been going, and he was part of the previous regime under David Wagner and Jan as well, I think had it not been for where we were and how bad we'd been for a good 9 months, I think Mark Hudson would have potentially been the next manager. But I think the Cowleys are a solid appointment, and it's one I think a lot of people are happy with. And the more they speak and the more they engage with people, I think the happier that Huddersfield fans are coming with them as well.
Matt, before you go, boss, have to get a quick score prediction from you. Will the Terriers get off the mark and bag a first victory in the Championship this season?
It's got to come sooner rather than later, hopefully. Otherwise, we're going to have a long season. I think much depends on if we can nullify Millwall. We do kind of push high defensively. If we can push high up and keep, your wingers, your wide men, and that particular striker high up, sort of high up the pitch, if you like, towards the halfway line, I think we could potentially sneak something if Millwall don't turn up. But the trick for us will be the last 20-25 minutes. That's where we've been really weak, and providing we're not clinging on at that point, I think we could potentially do something. But if we're clinging on with 20-25 minutes to go, with the confidence and the lack of resilience in the team, then it's going to be a long.
Nice one.
To the second half.
Nice one, Matt.
We'll just have to hope that the Klingons turn up tomorrow as well.
Matt Shaw from the Take That Chance Huddersfield podcast. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, cheers.
There we go. That was Matt Shaw, who thinks that maybe, just maybe, Huddersfield will get off the mark tomorrow. Of course, Millwall have lost 11 of their past 12 league visits to Huddersfield, gents. So I don't want to bring the mood down, but the omens perhaps aren't looking good. But of course, without a win in 5 now, I think, for the Lions. So it's about time that they got a victory. And of course, it is a long trip up to Huddersfield, Eamonn. And you have got some away day tips from a man named George.
Yeah, George's away day tips are there for you. He's not been well this week, George, but he still managed to get his away day tips together and over to me. For those going to Huddersfield, just to let you know that there are a couple of venues in the town centre who are happy to accommodate away supporters, and they are the Boy and Barrel as well as the Parish. But make sure you arrive at the stadium in plenty of time to allow for both ticket and security checks. Now, car parking is tighter, as they will have to park either in St Andrews Road, as the ground will be full. There are other car parks in the town centre, but the cost is around £6 a day for parking. We've also got another game at Luton midweek, and just to let you know that the pubs there is the Off the Wall in Luton in Park Street and the Red Lion in Castle Street in Luton. They'll be looking forward to greeting you, and again, make sure you may have plenty of time to get to the ground. Thanks to George.
Thank you very much to George. I love those tips on a Millwall fan show on Love Sport. Next up, it's the fan in the dugout.
Love Sport.
This is the Love Sport Millwall fan show, I should say, on Love Sport. Me, Matt Beadle, and the guys from Nolu talking with you for about another 8 minutes. We're going to get onto the fan in the dugout in a moment. But first, Millwall Lionesses are at home again this Sunday at 2 p.m. and face table toppers Stevenage, who are a team that our producer Josh supports. So he's got his fists in the air right there.
His spoon.
They sit above the Lionesses on goal difference. Don't forget, all Millwall Lionesses home games will be played at St Paul's Sports Ground in Rotherhithe. And throughout the 2019-20 season, entry to all fixtures they will be free of charge. To be in the know, you can keep up to date with Millwall Lionesses season on social media by following @Millwall_LFC on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Right, now I am delighted to say that Bethany Warren is on the line now. She is the fan in the dugout. Welcome, Bethany. I understand you've been waiting quite a while to come on the show.
I've been waiting a little while. I can't remember, it's probably August time. I was like asked to have a little go. So yeah, here I am now.
Good stuff. Well, we're delighted to have you on. I guess first and foremost, How's your view of the season so far?
Well, I know there's a lot of negativity going on at the moment, but I really think that we should be staying positive. I mean, if you look at a couple of seasons ago, when we had a bit of a bad spell at the start, and then we hit that 17-game unbeaten run from November.
Yep.
So I think it's a new team, a new setup, and it doesn't just come together straight away. We've got to be optimistic at the moment. That's what I think.
So who for you is making the greatest impact in the team at the moment? It's Eamonn, by the way. Nice to hear from you.
Hi, Eamonn. Nice to hear from you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of torn at the moment. I'm torn between Pierce and Biakowski. Because even though I know he had his big, bit of a cock up on the on the weekend, but he has saved us a lot from losses so far. But then with Pierce as well, he just seems to have the right attitude, and he seems to get the rest of the team really rolled up. So I'm kind of torn between the two of them at the moment.
Well, that ain't bad being torn between the two of them. They're both in defence, and hopefully they can make it a tighter defence for the rest of the season.
Yeah, let's hope so. We need a few more wins.
We do.
Bethany, we always ask about the first 3 players you'd select for the next match. Give us yours.
Yeah, so I'd go for Cooper, Smith and Pierce.
Agree with that, fellas?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. I think Piercy, he's been good since he's been at the club, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I've got no problem. Cooper, yeah, he's a good player. Lumps it a bit too much for me, but but he's strong enough. And yeah, I've got no problem with any of them. I think they're all good players. So.
Yeah, definitely. What about Hutchinson? Where's your stance on that, Bethany? It's Dave speaking.
Hiya, Dave. I really like Hutchinson. I think only if it's 3 at the back, I'd say.
Good point.
Yeah.
And obviously the game this weekend, Bethany, Huddersfield Town. We just had a Huddersfield Town fan on who thinks that they might get their first win of the season. Millwall need to get back to winning ways as well. Can you see that happening up north?
I really do think we're going to get this win. I reckon, I can see it happening. I always try and have a positive score in my head before going into a game. So, I think we can do it. I really do.
And what is that score?
I'm going 2-1 us, and I'm going to go Bradshaw and Cooper to score, and I'm going to have Cooper to score first.
Oh,
get your money on that.
I tell you what, if you're a better man or woman, you put your money on. Bethany.
Oh yeah, I'm going to put my money on it. Trust it. You've heard it here first.
Okay. Well, we have to mention gamble responsibly, please, Bethany. We don't want you throwing your money down the trail.
Absolutely. Gamble responsibly.
Bethany, we're glad that you finally managed to make it on the show, and it's been nothing but a delight talking to you.
It's been lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
Nice one. Cheers,
You're
Bethany.
welcome.
Thanks, Bethany.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was Bethany Warren finally on the show, and a positive air. We like that. We like that on the Millwall Fan Show. Now, Eamonn, you've got a question.
Yeah, our pod show, cast show, comes out for October shortly. And Daryl Bruggink, a long-term friend of the show from Milwaukee, well, you could only be a Millwall fan if you came from Milwaukee, USA, asks, the calls on social media this week for Harris's sacking have really amped up quite a bit. But even with the improvements to the squad, I figured a mid-table finish is likely the best that we can expect. We're only 3 points away from the spot at the moment, and after all, it's only September. Do you think we are getting close to the point where Harris should go? Or at what point do you think Harris ought to go if the results don't start coming in? Now, that's going to be a question that we're putting to everyone, and we'd like you to send your emails to nolutalking@gmail.com. That's NOLU, and that's talking without a G, all one word and lowercase. And if you can tell us what you think about Neil Harris's situation and whether he should go, whether he will go, or whether he should stay, let us know. Now, there will be No one likes us talking memorabilia for the top 3 answers to those questions. So get your email together and send it to Nolu, Nolu, talking, all one word without a G. And that's nolutalking@gmail.com.
Do you know what that reminded me of, guys? And here are the classified football results read by James Alexander Gordon. Tell you what, Eamonn, you've missed a trick, mate. You're in the wrong business.
There was a time I used to do something similar, but there you go.
That was a long time ago.
Stan, Dave, on that particular note that Eamonn has raised there, the question from Darryl Brugink, what are your thoughts on the Neil Harris argument, I suppose you could say?
I think this week is a tough week for him because, he made the point this morning. I read him in the paper this morning. He said, Huddersfield ain't won this season, and he knows these 2 blokes who have taken over, and he said they'll win it, and he'll win. They said they're going to win at some time, which does worry me somewhat. All I'm hoping they don't do it tomorrow. But in all honesty, and I'm not one of these people that advocate that he should go, but the fact is, right, the supporters at Millwall are not going to have the same carry on this season that we had last season. They're just not having it at any price. And if we've got 3 games this week, and if that's 9 points up for grabs, my personal view is if we was to lose all these 3 games, they're going to go spare down at Millwall. They're going to go absolutely spare. So I think he's, and it's because one of the biggest criticisms, my only complaint with him is not his signings. I accept it's an hard division. I've got no problem with any of that, right? My argument is the way that we're playing. Mm-hmm. And that's what he's got to change. And if he does that, then I think we'll be okay.
Dave?
Yeah, I have to agree on that. I wouldn't like to see him go because who are you going to bring in? But team selections are always going to be, you're either going to be happy or you're not going to please a lot of people. So team selection, I think we've got to start Bradshaw with Smith. And I think Hutchinson's got to stay at the back. My view.
Dave's view, of course, Stan, as well, those games that you speak of. It is Huddersfield coming up tomorrow, then you're away at Luton, and then on Saturday, the 5th of October, you host Leeds in what will be a massive game, especially for the Love Sports studio, because you guys, of course, are on after the Leeds fans, right, yeah. So maybe we'll have to get a couple of bouncers in the studio and try and separate you, so there's no riff-raff. Of course, that would be a good show. We could even do a 2-hour special.
Well, we could do, and we've already discussed with the Leeds fans, if one of them will dare come on and give them their view about what the game will result in.
Lovely stuff. Well, on that note, we look forward to next week's show, the Millwall Fan Show on Love Sport. We'll see you next Friday at 9 p.m.